Kim Dae-ho sat in his chair and looked around the massive meeting room. The walls were made of black stone that seemed to absorb light. Above them, stars moved slowly across a glass ceiling that showed the real sky outside. This was the High Council chamber on Nexus Prime, the capital planet of the Galactic Dominion. Dae-ho was the only human in the room. He was also the only one who needed to breathe air or eat food. Around the circular table sat beings that looked nothing like him. High Arbiter Velthos was made of living crystal that changed colors when he spoke. His body looked like a tall mountain of blue and purple gems. Flux Lord Kyrion had no solid body at all. He was pure energy, glowing white and yellow, contained in a special force field. Hive Speaker Zaketh looked the most normal, but that was not saying much. She had 6 arms, black skin, and eyes that could see in all directions at once. These 3 beings ruled over 847 star systems. They controlled the lives of trillions of creatures across the galaxy. They had been in power for 12,000 years, and today they were very angry. The outer rim systems are causing trouble again, Velthos said. His voice sounded like breaking glass, but somehow Dae-ho could understand every word. The translation device in his ear had stopped working years ago, but he had learned to understand their languages naturally. 17 systems have declared independence, Kyrion added. His voice was like wind through metal pipes. They refuse to pay taxes. They refuse to follow our laws. They are building their own armies. Zakth made a clicking sound with her mouth. The rebellion is spreading. Other systems are watching. If we do nothing, more will follow. Dae-ho had heard this story many times before. The Dominion was huge, but it was not popular. Most planets obeyed because they were afraid, not because they wanted to. The alien rulers always solved problems the same way, with force. We need to show strength, Velthos continued. Send the 5th Fleet to the Kepler sector. Destroy their defense stations. Take their leaders prisoner. Put them in re-education camps until they learn to obey. The other council members nodded. This was how they always did things. Dae-ho had watched them make the same decision dozens of times over the past 30 years. Different planets, different rebels, but always the same solution. The camps on Rigel 7 are ready, Zakth said. We can hold 50,000 prisoners there. The mind correction procedures are very effective. After 6 months, most subjects become completely loyal. Kyrion's energy form pulsed brighter. Good. We should also destroy one of their major cities as an example. Nothing creates obedience like fear. Dae-ho listened to all of this without speaking. He had learned long ago that interrupting the aliens was considered rude. They liked to talk through their plans completely before anyone else could speak. But as they continued discussing which weapons to use and which cities to target, something inside him felt wrong. Finally, when there was a pause in the conversation, Dae-ho slowly raised his hand. The 3 alien rulers looked at him with surprise. In 30 years of meetings, he had never interrupted them during a war planning session. Yes, Dae-ho? Velthos asked. The crystal being's colors shifted to a curious green. Dae-ho looked around the table at each of them. Then he spoke 3 simple words. What if we don't? The room became completely silent. Not even the air recycling system made any noise. The stars above seemed to stop moving. Dae-ho could hear his own heartbeat in the quiet. Don't what? Kyrion asked. His energy form dimmed with confusion. What if we don't attack them? Dae-ho said. What if we don't send fleets or destroy cities or put people in camps? What if we try something different? Zakth's 6 arms moved in patterns that meant she was thinking hard. Different how? Well, Dae-ho said slowly, maybe we could ask them why they want independence. Maybe they have good reasons. Maybe there's something we're doing wrong that makes them want to leave. Velthos made a sound like grinding rocks. They are rebels. Rebels must be crushed. This is how we have maintained order for 12,000 years. But has it really worked? Dae-ho asked. I mean, if the system was working perfectly, why do planets keep rebelling? This is the 4th major uprising in just the past 10 years. Maybe the problem isn't with the rebels. Maybe the problem is with us. The aliens looked at each other. For beings who had ruled the galaxy for so long, they suddenly seemed very uncomfortable. Kyrion's energy form flickered like a candle in the wind. What are you suggesting? Zakth asked. I'm suggesting we talk to them, Dae-ho said. Send negotiators instead of soldiers. Ask them what they need. Maybe we can find a solution that makes everyone happy. Maybe we can solve this problem without killing anyone. The 3 alien rulers exchanged glances. Dae-ho could not read their expressions, but he could feel the tension in the room growing stronger. You want us to negotiate with rebels? Velthos asked. His crystal body turned a dark red color. Why not? Deho replied. What's the worst that could happen? If talking doesn't work, you can always go back to your original plan. But what if it does work? What if we solve this without a war? For the first time in centuries, someone had questioned the Empire's most basic approach to problems. The council members sat in stunned silence. High Arbiter Velthos stood up from his chair. His massive crystal form cast strange shadows across the room. This session is ended, he announced. We will consider all options. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, Deho remained in his seat. He knew he had said something important, but he was not sure what it meant yet. He just knew that things were about to change. Outside in the corridor, Velthos spoke quietly to Kyrian and Zakth. Triple the surveillance on the human, he ordered. I want to know everything he does, everyone he talks to, every thought in his head. Something was happening. Something that scared them more than any rebel fleet ever could. The human was starting to ask questions. Dr. Park Siwoo stared at the data on her computer screen and felt a chill run down her spine. She was sitting in her small research lab on Station Omega-7, far from the center of the Galactic Dominion. Officially, she studied alien plant life. Unofficially, she was documenting something much more dangerous. For the past 5 years, Park had been tracking every major decision made by the High Council. She recorded dates, outcomes, and most importantly, she noted when Kim Dae-ho had spoken during the meetings. The pattern she discovered was impossible to ignore. 32 major crises in the past 3 decades. In 29 of them, Dae-ho had suggested alternatives to the standard imperial response. In 26 cases, his suggestions had been adopted, either immediately or after slight modifications. And in every single one of those cases, the results had been better than anyone expected. Park pulled up the file on the Chronari sector revolt from 15 years ago. The aliens had planned their usual response, orbital bombardment followed by mass arrests. But Dae-ho had asked a simple question. What if we found out why they're angry first? The investigation revealed that imperial tax collectors had been stealing money from the colonists for decades. Instead of bombing the rebels, the Dominion arrested the corrupt officials and reduced taxes by 40%. The revolt ended peacefully, and the Chronari sector had been completely loyal ever since. Park opened another file. The Zillion trade wars 12 years ago, 2 alien species had been fighting over mining rights, and both sides had asked the Dominion for military support. The standard response was to support the stronger side and crush the weaker one. But Dae-ho suggested something different. What if both sides got what they needed? His solution was elegant. The Zillions were good at deep space mining, but bad at processing raw materials. The other species, the Mordaki, were excellent at refining metals but had no good mining sites. A simple trade agreement solved both problems and the war never happened. Park scrolled through more files. The cultural preservation crisis on Beta Centauri, the food shortage emergency in the Vega system, the religious uprising on New Terra. In every case, Dae-ho's quiet suggestions had led to peaceful solutions that worked better than violence. But the most interesting pattern was not what Dae-ho said. It was how the aliens reacted to his ideas. At first, they always resisted. They would argue, complain, and insist that force was the only answer. But somehow, within a few weeks, they would start to come around. They would present Dae-ho's ideas as if they had thought of them themselves. Park knew this was not coincidence. Dae-ho was not just lucky. He was doing something deliberate, something subtle, something that the alien rulers did not even realize was happening. She opened her communication system and sent a coded message to Commander Lee Bo-ra, who was stationed on the military base at Alpha Proxima. The message looked like routine scientific data, but hidden in the numbers was a simple question. Are you seeing the same patterns? The reply came back within hours. Lee's message appeared to be a report on weapon maintenance schedules, but the real meaning was clear. Yes, it's not just the High Council. It's everywhere. Park's heart began to race. If Lee was right, then Dae-ho was not working alone. There might be humans throughout the Dominion who were quietly changing things from within. She thought back to the day Earth surrendered, 50 years ago. She had been just a child then, but she remembered the fear and hopelessness everyone felt. The aliens had moved Earth's moon, not destroyed it, just moved it 3,000 kilometers closer to the planet. The message was clear. We can do anything we want to you. Resistance is pointless. Humanity had surrendered immediately. No war, no fighting, no heroic last stands. Just quiet defeat and acceptance of alien rule. Most people saw it as the end of human independence forever. But what if it was not defeat? What if it was something else entirely? Park pulled up historical records from Earth's libraries. She found something interesting in the military archives, a document written by an ancient Chinese general named Sun Tzu. One quote caught her attention. "All warfare is based on deception. When able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive." Could it be possible? Could humanity's surrender have been the first move in a very long game? Park thought about the humans she knew throughout the Dominion. Dr. Choi Woo-jin worked in the intelligence division on Nexus Prime. His official job was to analyze communication patterns between alien species. But what if he was doing more than that? What if he was learning how the aliens thought, how they made decisions, how they could be influenced? There was Captain Yoon Tae-min, who ran supply convoys between outer rim planets. He was supposed to deliver food and equipment to military bases. But his routes took him to dozens of worlds, and he talked to thousands of people. What information was he really carrying? And Professor Han Soo-jin, the human historian who worked in the Imperial Archives, she had access to thousands of years of Dominion records. Officially, she was cataloging historical documents. But what was she really looking for? Park realized that she was part of something much bigger than she had imagined. There were 12,000 humans scattered across Dominion space, all in positions that seemed unimportant, but gave them access to crucial information. Scientists, engineers, cultural liaisons, transport workers, all of them perfectly positioned to observe, learn, and quietly influence the system from within. But how were they coordinating? How did they share information without the aliens noticing? Park thought about her coded messages with Commander Lee and realized the answer. They were not coordinating at all, at least not directly. They were all just doing what humans did naturally, asking questions, looking for better solutions, building connections with the people around them. The aliens had made a crucial mistake. They thought humans were just another conquered species, useful for their technical skills but not dangerous. They did not understand that humans were different in a fundamental way. While other species followed established patterns of behavior, humans constantly looked for new approaches. While other species accepted the way things were, humans always asked, "What if?" Park looked at her data again and saw the terrifying truth. The Galactic Dominion had not conquered humanity. Humanity had infected the Galactic Dominion. Like a virus spreading through a computer network, human thinking was slowly changing the way the Empire operated. And at the center of it all sat Kim Dae-ho, asking his innocent questions and making his helpful suggestions. To the alien rulers, he seemed like a harmless curiosity. They had no idea that he was the most dangerous human alive. Park encrypted her research and hid it in the station's mainframe. Someday, when the time was right, this information would be very important. But for now, she would continue her work. Continue watching. Continue documenting the slow transformation of the galaxy's greatest empire. Outside her window, alien ships moved through space, carrying out the orders of rulers who thought they were still in control. But Park knew better. The real power was shifting. One question at a time, one suggestion at a time, one human at a time. The revolution had begun 50 years ago. It was just so quiet that nobody noticed. Hive speaker Zakth had not slept in 3 days. Her 6 arms moved constantly across multiple control panels as streams of data flowed through her consciousness. As the head of Dominion Intelligence, she had access to surveillance networks that monitored every communication, every transaction, every movement across 800 star systems. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. It had started with a routine analysis of the human population. After Daeho's strange behavior in the council meeting, High Arbiter Velthos had ordered a complete review of all humans in Dominion space. The task seemed simple. There were only 12,000 humans scattered across the galaxy. How dangerous could they be? But as Zakth dug deeper into the data, a pattern emerged that made her blood run cold. Captain Yoon Tae-min commanded a supply fleet that visited 47 different star systems every year. His official mission was to deliver food and equipment to military bases. But Zakth's analysis showed something else. Every system Yoon visited had experienced reduced civil unrest over the past decade. Crime rates had dropped. Economic efficiency had improved. Local populations reported higher satisfaction with imperial rule. This could not be coincidence. Zakth pulled up files on other humans. Professor Han Soo-jin worked in the Imperial Archives on Nexus Prime. She was supposed to be cataloging historical documents, but her research requests showed a different pattern. She had been studying every major rebellion in Dominion history, every economic crisis, every political upheaval. She was not just recording history. She was analyzing it, looking for patterns, learning from the Empire's mistakes. Dr. Choi Woo-jin worked in the Communications Analysis Division. His job was to monitor message traffic between different alien species, watching for signs of rebellion or conflict. But Zakth discovered that Choi had been doing much more than monitoring. He had been subtly adjusting communication protocols, improving translation algorithms, making it easier for different species to understand each other. Interspecies conflicts had decreased by 34% in areas where he had implemented his improvements. Agent Nam Ki-jun was supposed to be a simple cultural liaison, helping alien populations understand imperial law and customs. But Zakth found that everywhere Nam worked, local governments became more efficient, more responsive to their people's needs, more stable. He was not just explaining imperial culture, he was changing it. The pattern was everywhere. Humans in technical positions had been quietly improving imperial systems. Humans in social positions had been building bridges between different species. Humans in administrative roles had been streamlining bureaucratic processes, making the government more effective and less oppressive. They were not sabotaging the empire. They were making it better, and that was far more dangerous than sabotage. Zakth opened her communication channel to the other intelligence directors. "Emergency meeting," she transmitted. Code Black. "The human situation is worse than we thought." Within hours, the Secret Intelligence Council had assembled in a shielded chamber deep beneath Nexus Prime. Directors from all three species sat around a table that looked much like the High Council chamber, but smaller and more secure. "Show them what you found," ordered Director Kethvar, a crystalline being like Velthos but more angular and sharp-edged. Zakth activated the holographic display and began her presentation. 50 years ago, we conquered Earth without a fight. We thought we had defeated them. We were wrong. We did not defeat humanity. We recruited them. The display showed a map of the galaxy with human positions marked in red. "Look at the distribution," Zakth continued. "Humans are not concentrated in one area where they could be easily controlled. They are spread throughout the Dominion, always in small numbers, always in positions that seem unimportant, but provide access to crucial systems." Director Wexmore, an energy being like Kyrion, flickered with confusion. "You think this was planned?" "Their surrender was deliberate." "Consider the evidence," Zakth replied. "Earth's surrender came immediately after we moved their moon. No negotiation, no resistance, no demands. Most conquered species fight until they cannot fight anymore. Humans gave up instantly. Why?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Because they were not giving up," Zakth continued. "They were accepting a different kind of battlefield. Instead of fighting our ships with their ships, they chose to fight our ideas with their ideas." She brought up another display showing imperial policy changes over the past 30 years. Every major improvement in imperial governance can be traced back to human influence. The economic reforms that ended the zillion trade conflicts, the cultural exchange programs that reduced interspecies tensions, the administrative changes that made local governments more responsive. All of these came from humans. Director Miztak, a biomechanical creature with multiple sensor arrays, processed this information with rapid calculations. The efficiency gains alone have increased imperial revenue by 15% over the past decade. The reduction in military conflicts has saved us enormous resources. The humans have made us stronger. "Exactly," Zakth said, "and that is the trap. We have become dependent on them. Our government now functions better with humans than it did without them. If we eliminate humanity now, we lose not just their contributions but our capacity to adapt and improve." She pulled up one final display, a projection of imperial stability over time. "Look at this trend line. Before human integration, imperial control was maintained through fear and force but was constantly threatened by rebellions. After human integration, control is maintained through efficiency and satisfaction, and rebellions have become rare." The intelligence directors stared at the data in horror. They have not conquered us through strength, Zakth concluded. They have conquered us through competence. They made themselves indispensable. Director Kethvar's crystal form turned a deep purple, indicating extreme distress. What do you recommend? Zakth considered carefully before answering. That is the problem. Every solution I can think of makes things worse. If we eliminate all humans, we lose our capacity for adaptive governance. If we isolate them, we lose their contributions to imperial efficiency. If we give them more power, we accelerate their influence over our society. What about Deho specifically? Wexmore asked. Could we remove him from the High Council? That would be the worst option, Zakth replied. In the council chamber, we can monitor his influence and partially control it. Outside the council, he would be free to work without our oversight. Besides, removing him now would send a message to all humans throughout the Dominion that we consider them a threat. That could trigger more active resistance. The meeting continued for hours, but no solution emerged. Every plan they considered had flaws that made it unworkable. The humans had maneuvered them into a position where any aggressive action would be self-defeating. Finally, Director Miztak asked the question they were all thinking. How did they coordinate this? How did 12,000 humans scattered across the galaxy implement such a sophisticated strategy without us detecting it? Zakth had been dreading this question because she knew the answer would terrify them even more. They did not coordinate it, she said quietly. This was not a planned strategy. This is just how humans naturally behave. When they encounter a system that is not working well, they instinctively try to improve it. When they see people in conflict, they look for ways to help them cooperate. When they find inefficiencies, they create solutions. The room was completely silent. We thought we were observing one human in our council chamber, Zakth continued. But we were wrong. We were not observing him. We were hosting him. And through him, we were hosting the collective problem-solving capacity of his entire species. The most terrifying realization was yet to come. Kim Deho was not the leader of a human conspiracy. He was simply the most visible example of something that was happening throughout the Dominion. Humanity was not plotting to overthrow the Empire. Humanity was quietly, unconsciously, inevitably transforming it into something entirely different. And there was nothing the aliens could do to stop it. High Arbiter Vel'Thos stood in his private chamber, looking out at the stars above Nexus Prime. His crystal body pulsed with angry red light as he considered the intelligence report he had just received. The human problem was worse than anyone had imagined, but he had a solution. A final solution. Bring me Director Zakath and Flux Lord Kyrian, he commanded his aide. Tell them it is urgent. Within an hour, the three leaders of the Dominion were gathered in the secure chamber. Vel'Thos activated privacy shields that blocked all surveillance and communication. The human infection must be stopped, Vel'Thos announced without preamble. I have devised a plan that will allow us to eliminate every human in the galaxy, while maintaining our reputation as benevolent rulers. Kyrion's energy form flickered with interest. How? A false flag operation, Vel'Thos explained. We stage an attack on Imperial civilians using human weapons and tactics. The evidence will point to a secret human terrorist network. The public will demand action. We will have no choice but to eliminate the threat to protect our citizens. Zakth made the clicking sound that indicated concern. The logistics would be complex. We would need to make the attack look convincing while ensuring no real humans were involved. I have already handled the details, Vel'Thos said. 3 days from now, there will be an explosion at the Memorial Plaza on New Titan. 500 civilians will die. The bomb will be made with materials that can be traced to Earth. We will find evidence that human terrorists plan to kill thousands more. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. New Titan was a memorial world dedicated to victims of past rebellions. It was populated by families of Imperial soldiers and officials. An attack there would generate maximum outrage with minimum political complications. The High Council will meet in emergency session. Vel'Thos continued. The evidence will be overwhelming. Even Deho will not be able to defend his species against such obvious guilt. The vote for elimination will be unanimous. Kyrian pulsed brighter with approval. When do we implement this plan? The attack happens tomorrow, Vel'Thos said. The emergency council session is scheduled for the day after. I have already prepared the evidence and arranged for witnesses. But there was something Vel'Thos had not considered. For the plan to work, it required unanimous council approval. and Kim Dae-ho sat in that council. The next day, explosions rocked Memorial Plaza on New Titan. The blast was precisely calculated to cause maximum casualties while leaving enough evidence to identify the perpetrators. Imperial investigators quickly found traces of Earth-manufactured explosives, communication equipment with human identification codes, and surveillance recordings that seemed to show human figures planting the bombs. The public reaction was exactly what Vel'Thos had predicted. Across the galaxy, alien populations demanded justice. How could the Empire have trusted humans for so long? How many other attacks were being planned? The human presence in Imperial society was clearly a security threat that could no longer be tolerated. On Nexus Prime, Kim Dae-ho sat in his small apartment and watched the news reports. His face showed no emotion as he saw the destruction, the casualty reports, the evidence that seemed to implicate his species in mass murder. He made no calls, sent no messages, took no action to defend humanity against the accusations. The emergency High Council session was called for the following morning. Representatives from across the galaxy attended via holographic projection. The chamber was packed with observers, military leaders, and security officials. This would be the most important council meeting in centuries. Vel'Thos presented the evidence with dramatic flair. The bomb fragments, the communication logs, the surveillance footage, everything pointed to a coordinated human terrorist network that had infiltrated Imperial society over decades. The attack on New Titan was just the beginning, he claimed. Intelligence suggested that dozens more attacks were planned. We have been betrayed, Vel'Thos declared. The species we trusted, the beings we welcomed into our society, have been planning our destruction from the very beginning. There is only one possible response. The other council members nodded gravely. This was clearly a crisis that required decisive action. The evidence was overwhelming. The threat was immediate. There was no time for debate or hesitation, but as Vel'Thos called for the vote to authorize the complete elimination of humanity, something unexpected happened. Kim Dae-ho remained completely silent. For 30 years, Dae-ho had been the voice of alternatives in council meetings. Whenever the aliens proposed violent solutions, he asked gentle questions that led them toward more peaceful approaches. But now, when his entire species faced extinction, he said nothing. He just sat in his chair looking down at his hands, apparently lost in thought. The silence stretched on. Vel'Thos waited for Dae-ho to speak, to offer some defense, to ask for mercy or negotiation. The other council members shifted uncomfortably. Even the observers in the gallery began to whisper among themselves. Finally, Flux Lord Kyrian could not stand it anymore. "Dae-ho," he said, his energy form pulsing with agitation. "Do you have nothing to say about these charges against your species?" Dae-ho looked up slowly. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I was just thinking about something." "What were you thinking about?" Zizakth demanded. Dae-ho smiled slightly. "I was wondering, if you eliminate humanity, who will ask the questions that need asking when your next great crisis comes? Who will think of the solutions you cannot see?" The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members shouted over each other. Observers demanded order. Security guards moved toward their positions, but Vel'Thos felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. In all his planning, he had not considered this possibility. What if the Empire needed humans more than humans needed the Empire? Dae-ho continued speaking, his voice cutting through the noise with unexpected authority. 50 years ago, you moved our moon to show us our place in the universe. We accepted that place, but you forgot something important about humans. We are very good at adapting. He stood up from his chair for the first time anyone could remember. You thought you conquered us, but you were wrong. We did not try to move your moon back. Instead, we convinced you to move it yourselves, one small adjustment at a time. The chamber fell silent again. Everyone was staring at the small human who had suddenly become the most dangerous person in the room. The Outer Rim rebellion that started this whole discussion, Dae-ho said calmly, that was not random. That was the result of 30 years of policy changes that gave outer systems enough autonomy to dream of independence, enough prosperity to attempt it, and enough allies to succeed. Vel'Thos felt his crystal body begin to crack under the stress. You planned this. All of it. No, Dae-ho replied. We did not plan anything. We just did what humans do. We adapted. We improved things. We asked better questions. And now you have a choice. He looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him. You can try to destroy us and lose your capacity for growth and adaptation, or you can accept us as true partners and transform the Dominion into something better than it has ever been. The trap was not closing on humanity. It was closing on the Empire itself, and there was no way out. The High Council chamber had never been so quiet. Kim Dae-ho stood at the center of the room, surrounded by beings who had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, and none of them knew what to say. High Arbiter Velthos was the first to find his voice. "You are confessing to treason," he said. His crystal body flickered between red and purple, unable to settle on a single color of rage. "Am I?" Dae-ho asked. "What exactly is my crime? Making your government more efficient? Reducing civil unrest? Preventing wars? If that is treason, then I am guilty." Flux Lord Kirian's energy form pulsed erratically. "You manipulated us. You made us dependent on your species. I asked questions," Dae-ho replied simply. "You chose to listen to the answers. You chose to implement the solutions. Every decision was yours to make." Zack leaned forward, her 6 arms gripping the table. "The attack on New Titan, did humans really do this?" Dae-ho looked directly at Velthos. "Why don't you ask the High Arbiter? I think he knows more about that attack than I do." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Velthos's crystal body went completely dark, then blazed with white light. "How dare you suggest that I would murder innocent civilians?" "The same way you have been murdering innocent civilians for 12,000 years, Dae-ho said calmly. "The only difference is that this time you plan to blame someone else for it." Security officers moved toward Dae-ho, but he raised his hand and they stopped. Something in his manner commanded attention even from armed guards. "Shall I tell them how I know?" Dae-ho continued. "For 30 years I have been recording every council meeting, every decision, every discussion, every secret plan. I have documented not just what you decided, but how you made those decisions. Those records have been analyzed by human social scientists throughout the galaxy. The blood drained from Velthos's crystal matrix, leaving him pale and transparent. We know how you think," Dae-ho said. "We know how you plan. We know your patterns, your weaknesses, your fears. The attack on New Titan followed your standard false flag protocol exactly. The timing, the target selection, the evidence placement, all of it matched your previous operations." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. "This contains detailed analysis of 17 different false flag attacks you have staged over the past 3 centuries. The Memorial Plaza bombing fits the pattern perfectly." Kirian's energy form began to flicker more rapidly. "Even if that were true, it changes nothing. You admit that humans have been working against the Empire for decades." "Not against the Empire," Dae-ho corrected. "For the Empire. We have been trying to make it something worth preserving." He gestured toward the holographic displays that showed galactic statistics. "Look at the numbers. Imperial approval ratings have increased by 40% over the past 30 years. Economic efficiency has improved by 25%. Military conflicts have decreased by 60%. The Empire is stronger now than it has ever been." "Because you infected it," Velthos growled. "Because we improved it," Dae-ho replied. "And now you face an impossible choice. You can try to go back to the old ways, ruling through fear and force, watching your empire slowly crumble under the weight of its own oppression. Or you can move forward, building something new, something that actually serves the people it governs." The chamber remained silent for several minutes as the alien leaders processed this ultimatum. Finally, Zack spoke. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Partnership," Dae-ho said. "Real partnership. Not humans as servants or curiosities, but as equal participants in galactic governance. The Dominion becomes a true confederation of species, with representation based on contribution rather than conquest." Velthos made a sound like breaking glass. "You want us to share power with every species in the galaxy?" "I want you to recognize reality," Dae-ho replied. "You are already sharing power. The only question is whether you do it openly and honestly, or continue to pretend you have absolute control, while we quietly make all the important decisions for you." The truth of this statement hit the alien leaders like a physical blow. For decades, they had been following human suggestions without realizing it. Their empire was already being run according to human principles of governance. Kirian dimmed to almost nothing, then blazed back to full brightness. "What about the rebellion in the Outer Rim? What about the systems that want independence? Give it to them, Deho said. Not complete independence, but real autonomy. Let them govern themselves as long as they contribute to the common defense and follow basic galactic laws. You will find that voluntary cooperation works better than forced obedience. And if they refuse to cooperate, then you deal with them the same way you would deal with any other partner who breaks an agreement. Through negotiation, arbitration, economic pressure, violence should be the last resort, not the first response. The debate continued for hours. The alien leaders raised objection after objection, but Deho had an answer for everything. He had been preparing for this conversation for 30 years, and he was ready. Finally, as the meeting stretched into the night, Veltos asked the question that everyone was thinking. Why should we trust you? How do we know this is not just another manipulation? Deho smiled. Because you do not have to trust me. You just have to trust yourselves. Every suggestion I make can be evaluated on its own merits. Every policy can be tested on a small scale before being implemented widely. You can verify everything. He paused, then added, Besides, what choice do you have? The old system is failing. Rebellion is spreading. Your own intelligence reports show that the Empire cannot survive much longer using traditional methods. You can evolve or you can collapse. Those are your only options. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Dominion officially became the Galactic Confederation. The transition was announced as a modernization initiative designed to improve efficiency and reduce bureaucracy. The alien leaders presented it as their own idea, naturally. The Outer Rim systems were offered a new deal, autonomy in exchange for cooperation. 16 of the 17 rebel systems accepted immediately. The 17th agreed to negotiations. Kim Deho remained in his position as human representative, but he was no longer alone. 12 other humans joined various council committees as official advisors. Dr. Park Si-woo became the director of systematic analysis. Commander Lee Bora took charge of conflict resolution. Captain Yoon Tae-min was promoted to logistics coordinator. The changes were subtle but profound. Instead of ruling through fear, the Confederation governed through consensus. Instead of crushing dissent, they addressed grievances. Instead of maintaining power through force, they earned loyalty through competence. 6 months after the transformation, a new crisis emerged. Long-range sensors detected ships approaching. From outside the galaxy, an entirely unknown species with technology that seemed far in advance of anything in the Confederation. The High Council convened an emergency session. The alien leaders looked at each other uncertainly. This was completely outside their experience. They had no protocols for dealing with extragalactic contact. Finally, Velthos turned to Kim Deho. What do you suggest? Deho thought for a moment, then smiled. What if we tried talking to them first? The alien leaders looked at each other, then back at Deho. For the first time in their species' history, they did not hesitate to say yes. Outside in space, the unknown ships continued their approach, but instead of warships moving to intercept them, they were met by a small diplomatic vessel broadcasting greetings in every language the Confederation knew. The galaxy was about to change again. But this time they were ready for it. The human revolution was complete. Not through conquest or rebellion, but through the simple act of asking better questions and offering better answers. The Empire had learned to evolve, and in doing so it had become something entirely new. Something worth preserving. Something worth improving. Something that could grow and adapt to face any challenge the universe might offer. And at the center of it all, Kim Deho sat quietly in his chair, already thinking about the next question that needed to be asked.